Hi, I'm Ajit Kumar Nair, psychologist. For online and offline support and guidance, contact 944-646-7779. Meet Maya. She just finished her third 50-hour work week in a row, and her internal battery is completely empty. Her plan for her first free Saturday in a month is simple: sleep in and recharge. But at 8 a.m., her friend Sarah calls. It isn't an emergency, but Sarah wants Maya to spend the entire day doing heavy lifting to help organize her garage. In the past, Maya would have sacrificed her rest. Today, she decides to do the right thing for herself. She takes a deep breath, politely declines the request, and tells Sarah she really needs the weekend to recover. Logic dictates that when you make a fair, reasonable choice to protect your own health, you should feel a sense of relief and victory. But the second Maya hangs up the phone, her chest tightens. A wave of physical anxiety hits her, and she spends the next hour pacing her brightly lit living room, replaying a 20-second conversation 50 times in her head. She did absolutely nothing wrong, yet her body is responding exactly as if she just committed a terrible crime against her friend. This highly uncomfortable phenomenon is called the self-care hangover. It leaves us with a strange contradiction. Why does treating yourself with basic, justifiable fairness trigger a paralyzing flood of guilt instead of peace? To answer that, we need to freeze Maya right here in her living room and look under the hood of her brain. When she set that boundary, several invisible psychological forces fired off at once. The first force is the good child trap. Growing up, many of us were only rewarded with love, praise, and safety when we were highly compliant and self-sacrificing. Decades of this reinforcement writes a strict neurological rule into your nervous system. Pleasing others means you are safe. Prioritizing yourself means you are dangerous. That childhood conditioning feeds perfectly into the second force, a cultural myth that insists we categorize ourselves strictly as either selfless heroes or selfish villains. Let's look at this spectrum line to see how it works. Our culture forces us to choose between the selfless hero on the far left and the selfish villain on the far right. What it completely ignores is the healthy middle ground right here in the center, called self-fairness. Because of that missing category, your brain mislabels acts of self-preservation. Watch this data point for saying no when exhausted. It drops perfectly into the fair middle zone, but your brain's warning system gets triggered, and the action is violently dragged over into the selfish villain category. That intense guilt Maya feels isn't proof of wrongdoing. It's the friction of violating decades of outdated programming that equates any lack of sacrifice with being a bad person. The third force driving this guilt is our evolutionary threat response. Early human survival relied entirely on never displeasing the tribe. Being rejected meant walking away into the dark, foggy wilderness completely alone, which was a guaranteed death sentence. Your primitive brain hasn't updated its software. When your friend feels a minor disappointment over a boundary, your nervous system misinterprets that tiny social friction as a life or death threat of tribal rejection. Finally, we hit the fourth force, cognitive dissonance. This is the severe psychological friction created when your new actions clash with your established identity. When a person whose entire identity is built on being the reliable fixer prioritizes their own needs, it triggers a sharp psychological clash. Your brain rejects the action because it doesn't match the label you gave yourself. Add it all up, and the self-care hangover is actually your internal alarm system glitching out. Ancient survival mechanisms and rigid identity structures are firing off all at once, at the exact wrong time. Unpausing Maya's Saturday, she still feels that knot in her stomach. However, she now recognizes her anxiety as a physiological reaction to breaking a habit, independent of the logic behind her choice. To rewire this response, start by treating guilt like muscle soreness after a workout. It is uncomfortable evidence of growth and the breaking of old habits. Next, you have to remember that adults are fully allowed to feel brief disappointment. It is their own responsibility to manage that feeling, not yours. When the guilt gets loud, apply the friend test. If an exhausted friend asked you if they should spend their only day off cleaning a garage, you would tell them to rest. You have to apply that exact same logic and empathy to yourself. Self-fairness grants you the same basic decency and respect you already offer to everyone else. Thank you for watching. Contact 944-646-7779.